3 years ago, my life was whole. Or at least, that's what it felt like. Derek was everything to me. A brilliant doctor by day, a passionate guitarist by night. The kind of man who could stitch up a wound in the ER with steady hands, then come home and play me a song he wrote on a whim. We had been together for 5 years. 5 good years. The kind where you start picturing forever without even realizing it. Derek loved his motorcycle. It was his escape, his one indulgence in an otherwise structured, responsible life. I used to tease him about it, calling him a weekend warrior, swapping his scrubs for leather like he was living some double life. He'd just smirk, tossing his helmet under one arm. Come on, Lauren. You know you love the leather. The morning he died was ordinary. He kissed me goodbye, grabbed his helmet, said he'd be back before his shift at the hospital. But he never made it. A driver ran a red light, didn't even hit the brakes. The call came an hour later. A voice I didn't recognize, saying words that didn't make sense. I don't remember hanging up. I don't remember anything after that, really. Just flashes. The cold hospital waiting room. The smell of antiseptic burning my nose. The doctor's tight expression as she said, "We did everything we could." And then nothing. Just a blur of days turning into weeks, turning into months. I buried myself in work. Took on extra projects. Anything to keep my brain too busy to think. Megan helped, in her own way. My sister wasn't exactly the comforting type, but she brought the boys over, Evan, who was 12 at the time, and Luke, 15. Their chaotic energy was the only thing that made my apartment feel less empty. For 3 years, I existed in this weird limbo. Not really moving forward. Not really grieving. Just stuck. I wasn't dating. Wasn't really living. But I was making good money. Enough to help Megan with her bills, since she'd been struggling after her divorce. I covered things here and there, electricity, groceries. Eventually, it turned into something more. A college fund for the boys. A secret trip to Europe I was planning for them as a surprise. I did it because I wanted to. Because family helps family. Then, last month, Derek's old bandmates came over. We do this sometimes, sit around, drink, tell stories. Dave, the lead singer, pulled out Derek's old guitar and started strumming absent-mindedly. You remember how he used to say music was medicine for the soul? He asked. I smiled. Yeah, and that's when it hit me. I needed something permanent. Something that would honor Derek and mark the fact that I was finally, ready to move forward. So I got a tattoo. I had never been the type for tattoos. I used to be the person who said, but what if you regret it later? But this felt different. The tattoo parlor was nothing like I expected, bright, modern, almost like an art gallery. The artist, Anna, studied the reference photos I brought, nodding as she sketched. For hours later, I couldn't stop staring at my arm. Derek, frozen in time. Guitar slung over his shoulder, that familiar smirk on his lips. It was perfect. It hurt like hell, but it was worth every second. 2 weeks later, when the tattoo had fully healed, I went to visit Megan and the boys. It was a typical Saturday afternoon. I wore a light jacket, not thinking twice about it. The moment I knocked, I heard Evan and Luke thunder down the stairs. Aunt Lauren. Evan practically tackled me in a hug. Luke, trying to act cool, hung back. But I saw the way his lips twitched. He was happy to see me, too. Megan appeared behind them, smiling. Perfect timing. I just made lunch. I shrugged off my jacket without thinking. And that's when the room went silent. For a second, I didn't get it. Then Evan's voice broke the tension. No way. Is that Uncle Derek? He rushed forward, eyes wide. That's so cool. Look, Luke, it's got his guitar and everything. Luke leaned in, nodding. That's actually really awesome, Aunt Lauren. It looks just like him. I smiled, warmth spreading through my chest. I wanted something to remember him by. Then, what the hell were you thinking? Megan's voice sliced through the air like a whip. I turned, startled. She was staring at my arm like it personally offended her. That's just ugly, she said, her lips curling. I can't believe you'd do something so permanent without even thinking about how it would affect the boys. The warmth in my chest turned to ice. I kept my voice steady. It's my body, Megan. I don't need to consult anyone about what I do with it. She crossed her arms. Well, you should have. What kind of example are you setting? Tattoos are, she lowered her voice, like the word itself was filthy, trashy. Evan scoffed. Mom, seriously? Luke rolled his eyes. It's not a big deal. Megan's expression didn't waver. Go upstairs, boys. Evan hesitated. But now. They exchanged a look before disappearing up the stairs. I exhaled sharply. What the hell is your problem? Megan shook her head. You don't get it. They've never talked about tattoos before. Now Evan's asking if he can get one when he turns 16. Luke's been looking up tattoo artists online. I let out a dry laugh. Megan, tattoos are everywhere. Half the people at the grocery store have them. You seriously think this is my fault? Yes, she snapped. First, it's a tattoo. Then what? Smoking? Drinking? Who knows what else? I stared at her. Are you hearing yourself? She exhaled sharply. It's the principle, Lauren. You've changed. And I don't want you coming around the boys if you're going to be a bad influence. Something in my chest cracked. A bad influence? My voice was barely above a whisper. Megan lifted her chin. I don't want you here. I swallowed hard. Are you serious? She nodded. I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back. To say she was just mad. But she didn't. So, I grabbed my purse and walked out. I thought she'd call. That she'd apologize in a few days, say she had overreacted. But the days turned into weeks. And Evan and Luke, who used to text me daily, stayed silent. I tried. Sent casual messages. How's school? Beat that level in your game yet? Nothing. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about the tattoo. It was about control. Megan had always needed to be the one in charge. Well, I was done playing by her rules. 2 months crawled by. At first, I told myself Megan just needed time. That she'd cool off, and eventually, things would go back to normal. But as the silence stretched on, something started to gnaw at me. Evan and Luke, who used to text me almost every day, were completely quiet. No memes from Evan. No sketches from Luke. Nothing. I tried reaching out. Hey, how's school? No response. Did you finish that history project? Nothing. I even sent Evan a dumb joke I knew he'd laugh at. The same kind we used to send back and forth for hours. Read. No reply. That's when I knew. Megan hadn't just cut me out, she had cut me out of them, too. One night, after too many glasses of wine, I did something I swore I wouldn't. I called her. She picked up after 3 rings. What do you want? Her voice was tight, clipped. Like I was some stranger, not her sister. I exhaled slowly, gripping the phone. Megan, this is ridiculous. I miss the boys. They haven't responded to any of my messages. Silence. Then she sighed. I told them not to. My stomach dropped. Are you serious? They don't need your influence, Lauren. I don't want them around someone who thinks permanent mistakes are something to be celebrated. I squeezed my eyes shut. A mistake? Megan, it's a tattoo. A tribute. Something that helps me keep Derek close. Enough with the Derek thing, she snapped. He's been gone for 3 years. It's time to move on. A thick, heavy silence settled between us. And then, she laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. Honestly, Lauren, I never even liked him. Always showing off with that stupid guitar. Acting like some wannabe rock star. Riding around on that death trap of a bike. My hands clenched into fists. But she wasn't done. You know what? She said, voice smug. Maybe if he hadn't been so reckless, you wouldn't still be crying over him. The world tilted. I felt like I had been punched in the gut, like all the air had been knocked out of me. Megan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Take that back. She scoffed. Why? Because it's true. Something inside me snapped. For years, I had been there for her. Paid her bills. Saved for the boy's future. Made excuses for her behavior. But this was the line. All right, I said, voice eerily calm. Got it. Then I hung up. And I didn't look back. The next morning, I sat at my laptop. Opened my banking app. Stopped every single payment I had been making for Megan. No more covering her utilities. No more helping with the boys' school fees. And the college fund? Gone. I didn't owe her anything anymore. Then, I opened my email. Megan. Since I'm such a negative influence, I assume you wouldn't want to rely on my money anymore. So, I will no longer be covering your bills. The Europe trip I planned for Christmas? Canceled. As for the boys' college fund, I've decided to close it. If you don't want me in their lives, then you don't get to use me when it's convenient. I hope you explain that to them. Maybe tell them it's because their aunt's tattoo made her unfit to be part of the family. Lauren. I had sinned. Then, I turned off my phone. For the first time in years, my mind was clear. The next morning, I turned my phone back on, expecting a disaster. I wasn't wrong. 37 missed calls. 63 unread messages. The first one was from Megan. How dare you do this to my children? You have no right to punish them because you're mad at me. Call me back now. Then Mom. Lauren, this is selfish beyond words. Family is everything. You're letting a tattoo destroy us. Dad's message was short. Megan needs that money. Think about the boys. I scrolled through, skimming the endless waves of guilt tripping. Not one single person mentioned what Megan had said about Derek. Not one apology. Just demands. Expectations. Like I was some bank account with feelings they had forgotten about. I exhaled sharply and tossed my phone onto the couch. At 2 p.m., the knocking started. Loud. Relentless. Lauren. Megan's voice rang through the hallway. Open this damn door. I stayed on the couch. Mom chimed in next. Sweetheart, please. We need to talk. I closed my eyes. My heart was pounding, but my body stayed still. No, I called back. We really don't. You're being vindictive. Megan's voice cracked with fury. You're punishing my children because you're mad at me. I laughed, but it was empty. Oh, now they're your children? That's funny. You had no problem using my money for them when I was such a bad influence. Silence. Then, you're not the same person anymore, she snapped. You've changed. I stood up, walked to the door, and leaned against it. I did change, Megan, I said, my voice quieter now. I stopped letting you walk all over me. More silence. Then, footsteps. I waited until I was sure they were gone before I moved away from the door. But I knew this wasn't over. It never was. For the next few weeks, my phone was a battlefield. Aunt Linda called. Honey, you can't throw away family over something so silly. Cousin Mark texted. Just apologize and make this right. Family sticks together. Uncle Peter tried next. Your mother is beside herself. Is this really worth destroying your family over? Each time, I hit decline or left the message unread. Because I finally saw it, I wasn't the one destroying anything. I wasn't the one who banned people over a tattoo. I wasn't the one who mocked a dead man's memory. Christmas approached. The texts became more desperate. But the worst part? The boys were still silent. No Evan. No Luke. They had really cut me out. Or Megan had made sure of it. Then, a week before Christmas, something unexpected happened. An email. From Evan. Aunt Lauren. I don't know if you even want to hear from me, but I just needed to say, I miss you. We both do. Luke and I didn't know Mom was going to cut you off like that. She just told us you didn't want to see us anymore. That you were choosing your new life over family. But last week, I overheard her talking to Grandma. She said something about the money, how you stopped paying for stuff. How she never actually thought you'd go through with it. I know now that she was lying. And I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I don't care about the tattoo. I don't care about any of it. You've always been there for us. And we should have been there for you too. I don't know if you'll write back, but I hope you do. Evan. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. I had known Megan was manipulative. I had known she was controlling. But telling the boys that I abandoned them? That was a new level of cruel. I swallowed hard, then started typing. Evan. I miss you both so much. And I never, ever wanted to stop seeing you. Your mom made a choice. I made one, too. And I'm so sorry you and Luke got caught in the middle. That's not fair to you. But I need to be honest with you. I spent years putting everyone else first, doing everything I could to help. And your mom took advantage of that. She decided I wasn't good enough to be in your lives, but she was fine taking my money. That's not love, Evan. That's control. I don't know what happens next. I don't want you or Luke to get in trouble because of me. But I'll always be here if you need me. And I will always love you both. Lauren. I hovered over the send button for a moment. Then, I clicked it. Minutes passed. Then, ding. A reply. Thank you. I won't tell Mom. But I don't want to lose you, Aunt Lauren. I'll find a way. Tears blurred my vision. I typed 2 words. Me too. For the first time in months, I felt a little hope. Evan still cared. Luke still cared. And now, they knew the truth. But Megan wasn't going to let them go without a fight. For the next few weeks, Evan and I kept in touch through secret emails. Nothing too deep. Nothing that could get him caught. Updates about school. Luke's latest sketch. A funny story about their dog knocking over the Christmas tree. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then, one afternoon, I got an email that made my stomach drop. Aunt Lauren. I can't do this anymore. Mom went through my phone last night. She found some of our emails. She flipped out, said I was disrespecting her authority and letting you manipulate me. She took my phone, grounded me indefinitely. I'm only able to email you now because I'm using my school laptop. But after today, I don't know when I'll be able to again. I just wanted to say, I love you. And I'm sorry. I don't want to lose you, but I don't know what else to do. Evan, I felt sick. Megan had been controlling before, but this was full-on isolation. I wanted to drive over there, drag Evan and Luke out of that house and tell Megan to go to hell. But I knew that wouldn't work. I took a deep breath and started typing. Evan, I don't want you to get in trouble because of me. But please know, I am always here. Always. When you turn 18, when you're ready, when you need me. I'll be waiting. I love you. I always will. Lauren. I hit send. And then, just like that, silence. No more emails. No messages. No sign of them. Days turned into weeks. Spring turned to summer. I tried to move on. I really did. I traveled. I played more guitar. I kept going to therapy. I even started dating again, though nothing ever felt quite right. But every time I passed by a store and saw a new video game, I thought of Evan. Every time I saw a street artist sketching in the park, I thought of Luke. I missed them so much. Then, on a humid night in late July, there was a knock at my apartment door. It was almost midnight. No one ever came to my place unannounced. I hesitated, my stomach twisting as I walked to the door. I peered through the peephole, and my heart stopped. Evan. I yanked the door open. He stood there, taller than I remembered, his backpack slung over one shoulder. His face was pale, drawn. Behind him, Luke hovered awkwardly, his own bag clutched in his hands. Hey, Aunt Lauren, Evan said, his voice hoarse. Can we stay here? For a second, I couldn't speak. Then I grabbed them both and pulled them into the biggest hug of my life. Inside, I made them sit on the couch, my heart pounding. They looked exhausted, like they hadn't slept in days. What happened? I finally asked, my voice softer than I intended. Evan exhaled shakily. Mom and I got into a fight. A bad one. He rubbed his temples, like the memory alone gave him a headache. She went through my stuff again. Found an old email from you that I forgot to delete. Luke shifted in his seat, arms crossed tightly over his chest. She lost her mind, he muttered. Evan let out a hollow laugh. She said I was a liar. Said I was turning against her. Then she told me if I didn't stop acting like an ungrateful little shit, I could pack my things and leave. I stiffened. She kicked you out? Not exactly, Evan said. But she knew what she was doing when she said it. I turned to Luke. And you? His grip tightened on the strap of his backpack. I wasn't gonna let him leave alone. My heart cracked wide open. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. You're safe now. Both of you. You can stay as long as you need. Evan nodded, his jaw clenched. I don't want to go back, Aunt Lauren. I don't care what she says anymore. I'm done. Luke hesitated. Me too. I swallowed the lump in my throat and reached out, squeezing both of their hands. Then you're home. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch long after they went to bed, staring at the wall, my mind racing. Megan wasn't going to just let them go. I needed to call someone. A lawyer, maybe. Figure out what my options were. Because no matter what, I wasn't letting them go back. The next morning, I made the call. The attorney listened patiently as I explained everything: Megan's control, the way she had cut me off from them, how she had manipulated them, and finally, how Evan had been forced out. When I finished, he sighed. Evan is 17, right? Yes. Then legally, he can choose where he wants to live. If he wants to stay with you, his mother can't force him back. A wave of relief crashed over me. But then, what about Luke? I asked. The lawyer hesitated. 15 is trickier. If your sister fights it, the court might side with her. I clenched my jaw. But if he doesn't want to go back, then we fight. So we did. Megan was furious. She showed up at my apartment twice, banging on my door, screaming about how I had stolen her children. I didn't answer. I let my lawyer handle it. And in the end, we won. Evan was legally free to stay with me. And after weeks of back and forth, Luke was given a choice. He chose me. It wasn't easy. There were nights filled with tears, with doubts, with what-ifs. But we got through them. We became a family. 1 year later, on Evan's 18th birthday, I took him to get his first tattoo. A small one. Just a phrase, written in tiny cursive across his forearm. Live boldly. I smiled as I traced the words with my fingertips. Derek would have loved this. Evan grinned. I know. Luke sat beside us, flipping through his sketchbook. You know, he said casually. I think I want one too. When I turn 18. I laughed. You've got time, kid. He smirked. Yeah, but I already know what I want. I raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah? What? He turned the sketchbook around. It was a drawing of Derek. guitar slung over his shoulder. That same familiar smirk. Tears burned my eyes. Luke. He shrugged. He was family, too. I couldn't speak. I just pulled them both into a hug, my heart full. Because for the first time in my life, I had my family. And that was enough.